Okay, so when I say the word sexy campaign, what pops into your head? Is it some huge Super Bowl spot with a massive celebrity? Or maybe one of those viral stunts that just leaves everyone going, wait, what just happened? For a long, long time, our industry has basically defined sexy by how big the budget is. But what if that's just completely wrong? What if the sexiest work out there has nothing to do with money at all? Well, let's explore that. And this right here, this single idea is the heart of this entire explainer. We're going to dive into how these challenger brands, the ones that don't have a blank check, are making some of the most memorable, most effective, and yeah, truly sexy work, all by leaning on their ingenuity instead of just throwing cash to the problem. But first things first, to really get this new definition of sexy, we have to deconstruct the old one. We've got to bust to the myth that has been running the show in marketing for decades. Ah, yes, the industry's favorite shiny objects. They're impressive, no doubt. They're super expensive, and look, they absolutely have their place. But they've also become a kind of crutch, right? A substitute for a genuinely great idea. When you can't lead on these things, well, you're forced to get a whole lot sharper. And that brings us to this classic matchup, the one most of us are actually living in, David versus Goliath. You're probably not the industry giant that can be on every single screen. You're the challenger. And you know what your slingshot is? It's a brilliant, thoughtful strategy. That's how you earn attention in a world that is just completely saturated with noise. So, this leads us to our first big principle. Small ideas can have an absolutely giant impact. It's all about finding a powerful human truth, no matter how niche or tiny it seems at first. This is what we call a small-scale insight, and it totally flips the old research model on its head. So instead of going out and surveying like 100,000 people to find some broad, boring consensus, you listen. You listen really, really closely to just 10 people. You find a beautiful, overlooked truth that feels so specific, but because it's so deeply human and real, it resonates with everyone. Truth scales. Simple as that. The Blind Faith campaign is just a perfect example of this. Bank Etihad found this small insight, but it had huge emotional resonance. They realized the visually impaired community in Jordan was completely left out of the visual traditions of Ramadan. Now, their solution wasn't some big-budget TV ad. It was a simple, beautiful act of inclusive design, a tactile bracelet, so they could track the moon's phases themselves. And this one small act of empathy, it grew into a national movement. It just goes to show you, a tiny human idea can cast a giant shadow. Okay, so you've found your powerful insight. Awesome. But now where do you put it? Well, our second principle argues that for challenger brands, the where can be just as creative as the what. The medium is the creativity. Just look at this. This is an absolute masterclass in media creativity from Mojo's Supermarket. So Calvin Klein's ad with Jeremy Allen White, you remember it, it basically took over the entire internet. Mojo didn't just comment on it, they hijacked the whole moment. They went out and found and bought the actual couch from the shoot. But here's the stroke of genius. They didn't put it in an ad. They listed it for free on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, come on. A platform for old furniture suddenly became the dead center of a cultural conversation. And Mojo was right there in the middle of it. You just can't buy that kind of attention. And this brings us to our final, and maybe the most important principle of all. An amazing insight and a clever placement, they're powerful, for sure, but they are nothing without courage. Courage beats the budget every single time. You know, we tend to think of small budgets as this huge limitation, but what if they're actually a source of freedom? Think about it. With smaller clients, there are often fewer layers of approval, less corporate red tape, and that gives you more permission to take risks, to be bold, to lead with a stellar idea instead of hiding it behind a bunch of production gloss. The ultimate example of this? Dollar Shave Club. Their famous launch video, it was shot for less than $5,000. Less than this. And that video, that one scrappy video, launched a brand that would eventually be valued at over $1 billion. I mean, talk about an astronomical return on investment. It's just wild. So what was the secret sauce? What did they have that $1 billion couldn't buy? Courage. It was the courage for the founder to stand there in his own warehouse and just say this line. It's raw, it's honest, and it is absolutely the kind of thing that a giant corporation's legal team would never, ever, ever approve. And that authenticity, that's what people remembered. All right, let's bring it all home. What is the real seduction? What truly makes a campaign sexy in today's world? Look, it is not about outspending your competition. To be honest, that world is kind of boring. It's predictable. The real magic, the real excitement, happens when you're forced to outthink them. It's in that world where you have to be gutsy and unexpected and just plain ingenious to get noticed. That is where the truly unforgettable work is born. So, I'll leave you with this question for your own work. Just remember, it is not about the size of your budget, it's about the size of your imagination. So ask yourself, is your next idea going to be brilliant? Or is it just going to be expensive?